of the research and presenting speech. This is the same project Elias just completed. I'll remind you that the purpose of this project is to learn or review basic research methods and present a well-organized, well-researched speech on any topic. Please welcome Dr. Beeman with his speech titled, Our Muscle Types and Functions, an Overview.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you all guests for being with me, especially in these, well, I would say strange times, but it's become the new norm now. So let's begin. What do you think when you think about a sculpture? Think about marble, tools, and you envision what the final product may be. Where exercise and exercise physiology is pretty similar, especially when it comes to self-improvement. And during that process of self-improvement, and as an instructor and as a trainer, I didn't research very well what the clients had to work with. I knew how to train them. I knew what areas they needed to be trained with, but I never took the time to really thoroughly understand what they were working with, whether they were with me in person or they were away when they were not with me. So, hence the title of my speech, I'm gonna give you an overview of our muscles and our muscle types. So, going back to the sculpture analogy, in order to sculpt something, you got to envision something and you got to know what kind of tools you are working with and what's available. So, I'm going to start with the overview of the 3 types of muscles. Then I'm going to branch off and talking about the different muscle fiber types. Now, the first umbrella, you have 3 categories as I previously stated. You have skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, and cardiac muscle. Skeletal muscle is the muscle that we think of the most. That's the make a muscle flex type of tissue. And the skeletal muscle, you can consciously control that. As I'm moving my hands, these are being operated by my skeletal muscles. When you walk around, that's all skeletal muscle. Conscious control. Skeletal muscle, hence the phrase, they are connected to our skeletal system. They're attached to our bones, our ligaments and tendons. Then we have the smooth muscle. Unlike the skeletal muscle, the smooth muscle contracts and helps with movement as well, but they are unconscious. And that's a good thing because you really don't want your smooth muscles to be consciously controlled. Because imagine having to think about digesting your food or having to think about blood going through your blood vessels. There are smooth muscles in your digestive tract, and there are also smooth muscles in your veins and capillaries. It's very important. Then we come to the last category. That's the cardiac muscle. Cardio, all in reference to the heart. It is also unconsciously controlled. And again, that is very good news because you don't want to think about your heartbeat, because if you fall asleep, you're dead. So that's the general overview of the 3 types of muscles. Now, we're going to get into the thick of it. What are we truly working with? Now, everybody has all 3 types of the muscles that I've just described. But now we're going to get a little more specific into the different fiber types. We also have all of these types, but the distribution from person to person is different. And there's a different numbering convention or naming convention with that. And it's a rather simple numbering and naming convention. It's type 1, type 2A, and type 2X. Type 1, those are considered your red muscle fiber types. And those muscle fiber types, they're called red because they have a high capillary density. And these muscle fiber types are traditionally found in marathoners. And because they have a high capillary density and they have a high oxygen capacity, that means that they typically are well with endurance type of exercises. Then you have type 2A. Type 2A is a special case because it is a mixture of extremes. It's a mixture of your red muscle fibers and it is a mixture of your white muscle fibers that I will explain shortly. Type 2A muscle fibers, again, they vary in endurance depending on the ratio of how many of the red and the white you have, but they are generally a mixture. And then you have type 2X. Now, this muscle fiber type is very popular among mainstream media. When you think white muscle fiber types, you think the Incredible Hulk. They are super fast, super powerful, but there comes a caveat. Because they're white, they don't have as much of a highest level of capillary density, they fatigue very quickly. So why do I mention all of this? Well, going back to the very beginning, I stated that you have to know what you are working with. And we as individuals, if we want to improve ourselves physically in the realm of fitness, we have to know what type of muscles we are working with. And how do we find that out? Well, the easiest and most non-invasive way of figuring that out is to get an MRI. Now, that stands for magnetic resonance imaging. Now, it's a little pricey, but it's well worth the information and knowing how your body will respond to physical training and what activities you may excel in. So with all of that stated, that is the muscle fiber types, an overview, and I thank you all for having me, and that's all I have for you this evening, and I hope you've learned something. Thank you, Toastmasters, and have a great evening.
Thank you very much, Brandon Beeman. Brandon Beeman with his research and presenting speech. Our third prepared speech tonight was not on the original agenda, but another one of our newest Toastmasters, Samuel Oblamante, stepped forward at the beginning of the meeting and volunteered and requested that he be put on the agenda to give us his icebreaker speech. Samuel is a first-time Toastmaster, like I said, one of our newest members, and he has already chosen the presentation mastery speech. Tonight, he will be giving his icebreaker speech, which is the first item in all of the Pathways programs. It's a 4 to 6 minute speech, which Samuel will introduce himself or some aspect of himself to us. Please welcome Samuel Oblamante with Samuel's icebreaker speech.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, for the introduction. And good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests. My hope is that